Welcome back, everyone. This is going to be part two of Reagan through Obama, all neoliberals. And I should point out before I get started on that, since I deleted my first video, I am not a Republican or a Democrat. Neither one. I'm not a conservative or a liberal. I'm not any of those things. I have no political agenda here in terms of political parties or the philosophies of liberalism or conservatism. I'm just an American who loves his country, and I've been a keen observer of American politics since 1956. And I can tell you, we're going down the drain. I think most people recognize that. And one of the biggest problems is the propaganda that promotes the idea that Republicans and Democrats have significant differences on the economy and the war, or war in general, the two most important issues regarding our country, the survival of our country. Propaganda abounds in this country. We like to think that, propaganda is in other countries, Latin American countries, or Russia, or China, or, wherever. No, it's right here. It's been here for decades. Edward Bernays style propaganda. The new political paradigm in this country, and it's been around a while, is the oligarchy versus the rest of us. You can forget about Republicans and Democrats. A good illustration of that was just yesterday, I think, or the day before. The House of Representatives passed a $1.1 trillion spending bill. What's interesting is the Citibank lobbyists, maybe you heard this story on the news, the Citibank lobbyists wrote a rider. You attach these amendments to the bill that they're trying to pass, even though the amendment has absolutely nothing to do with the bill that's being passed. That should be banned, but of course it isn't. Anyway, they attached this rider, or they wrote this rider, and then they went around hawking it to various people, Congress people, and somebody decided, yeah, I'll get it attached. So they did. And here's what that rider does, written by a mega bank. It rolls back, eliminates the paltry window dressing regulatory reforms on the financial sector that were in the Dodd-Frank law that supposedly reformed the financial sector. So now, or if this passes, it's gone to the Senate. It'll probably pass, but who knows? And by the way, it was passed in the House not just by Republicans, but by Republicans and Democrats. Not unanimously, but Republicans and Democrats were involved in passing it. So then it goes to the Senate. And if it passes, what that means is, quite simply, mega banks like Citibank and the Wall Street banks like, Goldman Sachs and Chase Manhattan and all of those, they will be able to make these risky investments in financial derivatives with the backing of the federal government. In other words, if they fail again, they'll be bailed out again. The same thing that caused the 2008 crisis is now going to happen again, because what few little restraints that were put on the financial sector after the 2008 crisis will be taken off. And Republicans and Democrats are doing that. So, those political parties, they don't mean a thing except on hot button issues. That's all. Hot button issues are insignificant to the survival of this country. I recognize that they're significant to this little group or this group or this group or maybe even a big group. But they're not significant to the survival of this country. The economy is. It's the biggest issue. If the economy tanks, all that other stuff doesn't matter. I'm getting a little dry mouth here. Anyway, that's an example of the oligarchy versus the rest of us. All right, let's get on to Reagan, etc. I first heard Ronald Reagan give a speech in 1964. I was at Colorado State University then, and back then, because of drinking the propaganda Kool-Aid, I was a die-hard conservative. Absolutely. I don't mind admitting it. I'm not that anymore. And as I just said, I'm not a progressive either, or a libertarian, or never mind all that stuff. But anyway, back then I was. And as a matter of fact, I was president of the Colorado State U chapter of Young Americans for Freedom, YAF. That's about as conservative as you can get, at least back then. So I know what I'm talking about when it comes to Reagan. Anyway, in 1964, Reagan gave this speech. It just kind of blew me away. I mean, it almost brought me to tears. It was such a powerful speech. It was in favor of, conservatism and Goldwater and et cetera, ad nauseum. So anyway, he was a conservative back then. All right, so I started following his political career. Fast forward to 1980 when he became President of the United States, took office January 1981. Well, I'm still following him, but by then I had kind of lost interest in conservatism for various reasons, and I don't want to take the time to get into that. For various serious philosophical reasons, serious principles. But anyway, so I'm following Reagan's presidency, and after about 4 years of that, I realized that this guy has totally abandoned any conservative principles. He isn't a conservative anymore. For one thing, during his era, the national debt tripled. Now, some people can say, well, you can blame that on the Congress. They initiate spending bills. Yeah, that's true. But guess who signs them into law? The president does. So, you can't, even if he had a Democratic Congress, and frankly, I don't remember if in both terms he did. I doubt that sincerely. You can't excuse him because it's all under his watch. And the presidency is pretty powerful in terms of Congress. So, anyway, that was one reason that he was no longer conservative, and there were others, but I don't have time to go into them. But one thing I did notice, he became more and more of an international kind of interventionist, especially in Central America and South America. And so, again, that's not conservative. That's unconservative. Conservatives, original conservatives, they don't believe in interventionism. They do believe in trading with countries and cultural exchanges and, working with the scientists of other countries and all that kind of thing. But they don't believe in sticking their nose into other countries' business. So anyway, and then he hooked up with Thatcher, and I thought, what is going on here? And it was only years later that I learned that in terms of the WTO, which is a major tool of neoliberalism, uh, Reagan and Poppy Bush laid the groundwork for the formation of the WTO, World Trade Organization. They did so with 8 years of talks that resulted in converting GATT, the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, into the WTO. And about this time you're thinking, well, so what? Who cares? That's boring. Some critics, I'm not saying I'm one of them, I don't know this, but some critics have called the WTO the nucleus of a world government. Even if that's not true, this is a fact. The WTO controls 97% of world trade. 97%. And the rules of the WTO trump individual countries. And if you don't abide by the rules of the WTO, you're pretty much out of world trade. I mean, you can still do it because they don't control all of world trade. You can still do it, but it will be greatly reduced and pretty ineffective or inefficient. And then in Clinton's era, there was the 8th round of these multilateral trade negotiations that started in 1986 and ended in 1994, 86 through 94. And then the World Trade Organization was officially formed in, I think, either late 94 or early 95. So you had Reagan, Poppy Bush, and Clinton all involved in the formation of the World Trade Organization. And just like with NAFTA, just exactly the same as with NAFTA, Clinton and Gore spewed out all this propaganda about how the WTO, just like NAFTA, was going to create all these jobs in the United States, and the economy was just going to boom. Well, the economy did boom during the Clinton years due to the dot-com bubble, not due to the WTO. And then, of course, the dot-com bubble burst. We all know that story. Anyway, we had all these. We had those 3 presidents involved in the formation of the WTO, a primary tool of neoliberalism, along with NAFTA. I mentioned that last time. I'll never forget a debate between Al Gore and Ross Perot, and they were talking about NAFTA. And Gore was, giving out all of this propaganda regarding the great benefits of NAFTA, North American Free Trade Agreement. And he said something like, oh, you're just going to hear the sound of money in this country. And Ross Perot replied, the only sound you're going to hear is going to be the sucking sound of jobs going to Mexico. And he was right. That's exactly what happened. Okay, well, we didn't really get to Obama yet. I'm kind of running out of steam, and I can see that my video is not syncing properly in terms of the audio and the lip movements. And I have no clue as how to fix that. So I'm gonna wind this up with just a little something more about neoliberalism. That economic and political philosophy is known throughout the world, except in the United States. Until very, very recently, it's never been mentioned here. Why is that? Well, here's what I think. You haven't heard it in the corporate media. You haven't heard it by political pundits. You haven't heard it from the lips of politicians in D.C. because they all know that 99% of all Democrats and Republicans, and that percentage is a guess, obviously, but the overwhelming majority of Democrats and Republicans are neoliberals. The pundits, the politicians, the corporate media, they all know that. They don't want people looking into the phenomenon, the worldwide phenomenon of neoliberalism. It's a primary philosophical underpinning of the oligarchy and the corporatocracy, and its principles are being implemented around the world. I'll have to do a separate video on how the neoliberals have basically imposed neo-colonialism on developing or poorer nations. It's just a crime. It's just a crime what's going on. And unfortunately, I'm afraid that the majority of Americans don't know about it. They don't know much, if anything, about neoliberalism. So I'll have to make a third video about this topic. Just trust me, I've been around a long, long time. I'm an educated person. I have some intelligence. I mean, I'm above average, I think, in intelligence. And like I said, I've been observing and studying American politics since 1956. And I'm just appalled at the transformation that has occurred. And every day, practically, in the headlines, you can see what's going on if you have all of the parts and you can connect the dots. You can see what's going on. It's right out in plain sight, people. Right there in plain sight. Okay, I got to wrap this up. All right, now, oh, by the way, thanks for watching, and you be well. Take care of yourself. All right, here we go again. I got to figure out how to shut this damn thing off. I hate tech stuff. I like what you can do with it, but I hate trying to manipulate it. You know, tech whiz kids, they don't think like normal people. They design this stuff, I think, for tech people. Okay, I'm ready to go here. All right, be well. See you next time. Bye.